Hello and welcome to another Filmcast Without a Cause. I'm Jacob Rosdale.
And I'm Patrick Boberg.
And if you're joining us for the first time, welcome, Pat. How do people contact us if they want to let us know how we're doing with the show?
Well, they can leave a comment on our website, filmcastwithoutacause.com, or hit us up on Twitter, filmcastwoac. That's our handle on there. Of course, if you're feeling brave enough, the FWOC phone is always open. Leave us a message. It's 515-412-0737.
And if you are new to our show, you may not know that we start off every week with some news highlights from Movie Land. And of course, the big news this week are the Oscar nominations, but we are postponing those to the final third of our show because I think if we were to start ranting about it, it could go on forever and we would never get around to our feature review of Zero Dark 30. That's going to be later in the show, along with the announcement of our next FWOC franchise flashback. I'm so excited for that, Pat. Can't wait to announce it. But Oscars aside, there was a lot of news this week. It kind of, after that holiday slump, I think it just started pouring in.
It just hit like a bomb. Everything seemed to happen. We had to dwindle it down from about a dozen to 4 stories.
This is actually kind of has an Oscar tie because this person, Steven Spielberg, is nominated for Best Director this year. But his next project, which was going to be Robopocalypse, seems to be facing its own postpone-apocalypse. I don't know if that's the proper term for postponing an apocalypse. In a recent quote from his spokesperson, Spielberg said the project was, quote, too important and the script wasn't ready, it's too expensive to produce, and it's back to the drawing board to see what is possible. This is a film that was already delayed. I know, Pat, you were kind of looking forward to it, right?
Oh, definitely. I heard an interview on NPR with the author of the original book, and just the way he was talking about how robots make decisions, I was like, this is going to be completely different and not the general Terminator or Matrix style of robot life or post-apocalyptic robot-human interactions. And I thought it was a really interesting concept.
It sounded like it was going to happen for sure. I mean, and we even talked about it a few months ago now when we were talking about a potential robot trend, and maybe I spoke too soon when I suggested that, but it already had a cast, like Chris Hemsworth and Anne Hathaway were in it. It had a script by Drew Goddard, who I'm a fan of now after Cabin in the Woods. He was the co-writer-director of that. All hope is not lost, Pat.
Yeah, Steven Spielberg said something about all this talk of it being postponed or in turnaround is nonsense. It's going to happen. Is that right?
Yeah, I found another quote from Spielberg. He was asked about it, still doing like rounds for like awards and Lincoln and whatnot. He said, "We found that the film was costing a lot of money, and I found a better way to tell the story more economically, but also much more personally. I found the personal way into Robopocalypse," which that kind of sounds funny. "And so I just told everybody to go find other jobs. I'm starting on a new script, and we'll have this movie back on its feet soon." So probably not 2014 like it was originally going to. Actually, originally it was going to be this year, then 2014. Now who knows?
I have another take on this. Obviously, there's Pacific Rim that's coming out, and it has a lot to do with robots versus aliens, which may not necessarily be the same concept, of course, as of a robo-apocalypse, humans versus robots, but there's Transformers, there's Pacific Rim. It reminds me kind of Varsity Blues versus Friday Night Lights. Do you know the story of these two movies?
No, I don't.
Okay,
actually.
Well, back in about 1999, when Varsity Blues came out, a few years before that, Friday Night Lights was optioned. And very similar to, say, Deep Impact, Armageddon, both films, Varsity Blues, Friday Night Lights, have a very close history and almost the exact same story, except for the coach is evil in one and he's good in the other. And the difference is that Friday Night Lights got shelved because Varsity Blues was put into production so quickly, and they thought, well, this is just going to make us look like we're following and not be as good. So maybe not Spielberg alone, but the people he's working with are like, maybe we should just wait a little bit and see if this Transformers thing dies out and Pacific Rim ends, and then maybe we'll come back and do something.
Very, very curious theory you have there. Either way, you know, it frees Spielberg up. I know there was buzz just this weekend about how Jurassic Pork.
I'd love to see that movie. That'd be amazing.
Cloned hogs just eating people alive. Jurassic Park 4 is back. I don't think he's going to direct that, but he's at least producing that. So I don't know. The prospect of Spielberg doing another big sci-fi film before he completely tires of these tentpole films will always get me excited. So I hope Robopocalypse does get made. And as big of a director as Spielberg is, a director who at this point I'm almost more curious to know what they're going to do next, that would be Christopher Nolan. And funny enough, his next project is something that Spielberg was developing as well. It was a film called Interstellar, and awesomely enough, it's another high concept genre picture, which is what we've come to expect a little bit from Christopher Nolan. Specifically, it is about a group of scientists who travel through a wormhole, and then the plot will include time travel and alternate dimensions. How do I get less excited about this, Pat? I need help.
I don't know. His brother wrote it, correct?
Yeah, Jonathan Nolan wrote it for Spielberg.
And then Christopher, when he passed, him and Chris started rewriting it together to make it like something different. Is that correct?
Exactly. I think Nolan, or I need to be more specific, Christopher Nolan is going to be rewriting the script with his brother Jonathan to put more of his Christopher Nolan spin, whatever that is. I guess maybe he's going to tell it a little non-linearly or something. But anyway, I mean, it's another big original sci-fi picture with time travel. So, I mean, and alternate dimensions. That just sounds something totally up Nolan's alley. I don't think a date for this has been announced or anything, but I'm already trying not to get my hopes up to astronomical levels.
Well, maybe I'll throw a little water on that fire just for the sake of devil's advocate. If we look at his last two films, Christopher Nolan and his brother Jonathan, that is, Inception, probably the sticking thing that people have against that movie is just constant exposition. If this is another super high-minded sci-fi film that has to deal with time travel, wormholes, true theoretical physics that have to deal with gravitational physics and astrophysics, I guess they have partial... I don't know what this person, but the script is based on scientific theories developed by a Caltech professor. Do you see this possibly being, while it could be amazing, and I'm definitely going to see it the night it comes out, isn't there some sort of worry that based on the last two films, which I have been on the side of the failure of Dark Knight Rises, that there might be something to, just wait a little bit. Just wait, Do you feel a little bit of that?
Well, maybe if I hear Ellen Page is cast as an ingenue astrophysicist who has to have everything explained to her, I'll pause a little bit. But I can see where the thing I like about Nolan's films, I don't think films should all be puzzles that you need to figure out, but I like how he always defines a set of rules and then follows those rules with, like, The Prestige and Inception specifically that I'm thinking of, and Memento, his breakout film. When you bring in, like, alternate dimensions and time travel, really heady sci-fi concepts, I think he can have a lot of fun with those. If you were to tell me that premise, he would be the director I'd want to see execute.
You know what I'd love for this to be? If this is just a complete shell for, like, a Fantastic Four style story, because time travel, interdimensional science, wormholes, these are all things the Fantastic Four dealt with. I doubt there's going to be any superpowers involved here, but it sounds very similar to a group of scientists, which everybody outside of Johnny in the Fantastic Four is. That would be,
which was kind of irresponsible for them to bring him along, by the way. But I digress.
Well, hey, he ended up with the coolest power of all, in my opinion.
It's true.
But it's interesting, just the idea of, hey, everything is a take on something else.
I was figuring Nolan would go on to do this Ian Fleming biopic he's been talking about for a while. And then I was hopeful that, after Sam Mendes had such a success with Bond, and obviously they're going to keep making those, that he would finally get the chance to do a actual James Bond film, because that's kind of what he did with Batman anyway. But that'll just have to wait for maybe the next project.
Without completely derailing our momentum, isn't that Ian Fleming movie now being made by Duncan Jones?
Oh, I got Duncan Jones and Christopher Nolan confused. I don't think Christopher Nolan was ever developing an Ian Fleming biopic. That was Duncan Jones. That's why I should do more research before I start talking. But I do know Christopher Nolan wanted to make a Bond film.
I'm sorry to completely drag you out into light like that. But
I'm glad you did before this went to air with me unchallenged.
Yeah, wow. No mea culpa next week this way. But staying in the sci-fi vein, our next news story deals with something that another thing that Jacob Rosdale brought to my life, and that would be Why the Last Man. For those who don't know, it's a Brian K. Vaughan graphic novel series that had to deal with something happens and there's only one man left on Earth, this character named Yorick, and he wants to go find his girlfriend, correct? That's in Australia. Was that this?
Yeah, his girlfriend is studying in Australia when this catastrophe or whatever happens that wipes out all of the male gender.
Well, about 3 or 4 years ago, there was some serious momentum for this being turned into a movie, and I don't remember the people attached or if anybody was attached in general, and then it just fell flat. I think maybe it was just too out there of a story. But now, people who have seen a short fan film called Portal No Escape that came out 2 years ago, it was a major internet fan film hit. It's really good. That director, Dan Trachtenberg, has been assigned this film, and it's going to happen. How excited are you?
Pretty excited, actually. I don't know much about Dan Trachtenberg. I saw the short film when it premiered, I don't know how long ago it was. And I wasn't a big Portal fan, but I could tell it was well done, especially compared to, I don't want to slam fan films, but there was a Y the Last Man one that was out,
Yeah, we both, I think we might have even talked about it here, except for the acting was pretty bad.
Yeah, the acting was pretty bad, but this, was a pretty good short film. I don't know if Trachtenberg has any film school experience. It seems like he's done commercials, so what won me over about this is his sheer enthusiasm for this. You actually listened to him talk about it, but I saw on Twitter that he referred to this as his dream job.
Yes, to give a little insight into that, Slash Film found an old podcast that Trachtenberg was on. He was actually a co-host of it, or a triumvirate of hosts, back in 2006, and he was talking about geek movies that were being made, and I can't remember exactly what was optioned at the moment, but he was saying that Y the Last Man, he was getting all into it and how cool it was and how Brian K. Vaughan was, ahead of his time as far as just not having dialogue just for dialogue's sake or mindless action in a comic, because in reality, there's extremely limited action in this. It's not superheroes or lasers or spaceships. I guess, well, there's astronauts, but that's getting too deep into the story.
Maybe the sequel.
Yeah, maybe. But it seems like from this, well, I'll post this YouTube link from this old podcast of his 7 years ago, that he was into it then and was excited about the possibility of it someday being a movie. And here, think about 7 years later, he's the man who's doing it. I'm sure people have said that over and over again about things they'd like to make, but just to be the guy who eventually one day gets to make your dream film and have there be audio evidence that is the truth, that it's your dream film, that's amazing. Because you hear so many actors or directors say, oh, I read all these books when I was a kid. And I think the only one that I truly believe is Joss Whedon.
Yeah, it's not simply lip service in this
Exactly.
case. And that is really exciting. That he's going to do it. He's going to do his best to do it service. I do know Brian K. Vaughan himself wrote a script. It was discarded, unfortunately. I really want to read that script because apparently he changed the ending, or he gave the movie an ending which was different than how the comic book series, which only ran 60 issues, ended. So in a cool, kind of how The Walking Dead is changing things from the graphic novel as it makes it to the TV screen. I would really like to see what the creator would have done with it, but I'm sure Trachtenberg will do his best to do the graphic novel justice.
Interesting.
And while we are delaying our Oscar talk,
this is the story that we had to get to before Oscar talk. This one right here.
Not the only award news that broke this week, and we're not talking about the Golden Globes. We are talking about the 33rd annual Razzie Awards. And in case you don't know what the Razzies are, it's you have to actually join to vote for the Razzies. Basically, the embodiment of internet snark, even though it existed long before the internet, or at least before the internet was popular, 33 years. And they nominate things for worst picture and worst actor and worst on-screen duo. And I don't know. What are your feelings about the Razzies? Do you actually care? Are they worth a chuckle to you at least?
I would say they're worth it just because it shows that people out there, even if they're snark and full of bad vibes and negativity that you don't want to endorse, at the same time it's a way of telling Hollywood we don't want this junk, because generally the worst pictures are, just looking at these films that they list for worst picture: Battleship, The Oogie Loves, That's My Boy, 1,000 Words, The Twilight Saga. Those are all movies that maybe outside of Twilight, I don't know it very well, that should not have been made. Or if they should have been made, they should have been given much more thought. So just the idea that some institution, I don't know if that's the correct word at all, but they have 30 years of this in their past. So I think that's okay to say, we don't want this crap, and we're going to highlight how bad it is.
Yeah, Twilight is kind of an easy target, and it leads the nominations with 11 nominations in 10 categories. I don't know if any of the Twilight gang will pull a Sandra Bullock or a Halle Berry and show up to accept their award. But that's what I like about the Razzies, is that sometimes the stars have a sense of humor about it. But for the most part, it's something I could do without. It's worth just to hear. It's kind of a tradition now, so I don't want to see it go away. But if you are curious, if you like contrarianism, I guess the Razzies aren't that contrarian. But I also discovered this week Armand White, I guess, the famous internet
This movie
critic.
Was better than that movie?
Yeah, every year he does a better than list, which is, if you read it, it'll just make your blood boil. Because, I mean, some things, he picks the artier version of a different film or whatever. But other time, like, I can't remember what the main example was. He said, 1,000 Words, a Worst Picture nominee here. That's what made me think of it. It said 1,000 Words is better than Argo. And it was talking about how 1,000 Words is this critique against Hollywood and how Argo glorified Hollywood's role or glamorized it or something. But another comparison Armin White made was saying that Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance and Taken 2 were better than our feature review for this week, Zero Dark 30. Let's see if we agree.
You really believe this story? Osama bin Laden? Yeah. What part convinced you?
Her confidence.
Based on first-hand accounts, Zero Dark 30 follows the CIA's decade-long manhunt for Osama bin Laden.
There's a 60% probability he's there.
I'd say it's a soft 60, sir.
It's 100%. I know certainty freaks you guys out, but it's 100.
The last time director Catherine Bigelow and screenwriter Mark Bowl collaborated, the result was 2009's The Hurt Locker, the film that, along with making Bigelow the first female director to win the Academy Award for directing, also earned the Best Picture Oscar. Zero Dark 30 is another military thriller procedural, this one telling in almost journalistic detail a CIA analyst's obsessive pursuit of the man responsible for the 9/11 attacks. It's heavy stuff, and the film has already been a source of controversy, first by politicians worried that the film, which was initially supposed to debut before the last presidential election, would influence voters, and later for its depiction of interrogation methods, with some saying that the film is pro-torture. Now that the film is out and still making headlines as well as top 10 lists, Pat, do you think Bigelow's film is worth all the fuss, and is the film more than just an excuse to drudge up old political debates? In other words, last week you started our Django Unchained review by asking me to talk about how it treats slavery. I'm asking you about Zero Dark 30 and torture.
Well, it's interesting because they both seem to generate the same reaction where people will get upset about slavery and if he's using it as a joke or a lark. And here, if Bigelow and Bowl, the screenwriter, are using torture in a way that says we had to do this and it did something worth noting. I don't know if it really does that in the movie. Having gone into the movie, I hate going into films where you know that type of thing before you go in. You can't help but think about it. At the same time, I don't really know how I feel about movies coming out so quickly after the fact that are true to life stories. Like when Apollo 13 came out, that is obviously over, I think 25 years old by the time it came out, the story. If this movie had come out in maybe another 6 or 7 years, I don't know if it would have hit as hard because Osama bin Laden, or UBL as they call him in this film, would have been in people's mind. But it definitely hits while the iron's hot. That is for certain. I don't really care so much about the political debates because I don't really feel the film is pro-torture. It's just telling the fact that, hey, we tortured these people. You know, everybody knows it. Why are we trying to hide behind it? Did you think that it was as politically charged as everyone makes it out to be?
I don't think it is. I think it is good that these conversations are being had. Mm-hmm. Besides that, I do think the characters in the film believe torture works. Yeah. Yes. And if torture was part of the finding of Osama bin Laden, it would be irresponsible of the film not to show that. And I don't know if maybe these people were hoping that there would be another character being like, but torture is wrong, other than I guess we get President Obama saying it in a TV interview. But I don't know. I think that's it's trying to provide the realities as these characters portrayed them to the screenwriter. So I don't know if the film is pro-torture or anti-torture, but I think it is showing that it is a gray area and it's not as black and white as people say. But after that, we can move on. What did you think of the movie overall? I mean, any other thoughts you have about it besides the political debate?
Well, I found it interesting because one of the first things I remember learning when I was taking a screenwriting class is backstory is so important. And in this film, I think everybody knows the backstory of 9/11 and maybe even the attacks that were prior to that. But you know absolutely nothing about Maya on a personal level before she shows up. You don't even know basically anything about her on a personal level throughout the entire movie. I mean, they give you her ethos, pathos, and logos of why she cares so much about this thing, about finding Osama bin Laden, and she feels almost like a spiritual mission that she was put on Earth, or she was spared death at certain points so that she could find him. And I found that all extremely interesting. They pull this off in a not a normal story arc manner of their main character and getting to the end. But at the same time, this is another true story where everybody wants to know the dirty details, and they definitely give them.
Until after the movie, I just assumed that Jessica Chastain, who gives a great performance, I will say that, I thought her character must be a composite. And then I went online to...
It's not, right? It's one woman.
It's based on a woman who is still being kept top secret because of who she is, and I guess, all the things she's done. So that blew my mind first off. But at first I just thought she was there to, represent American dogged determination, and because essentially this film is a revenge film, kind of like Django Unchained a little bit. Those kind of revenge films. It's about a nation's search for revenge, and it's personified through this one woman. And in that regard, we don't need... I don't think she has much of a personal life, and I don't think we need to know her backstory. I don't know if that was really a criticism you had.
I don't know if it's necessarily a criticism. I'm more kind of in awe that they pulled that off, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
That you want to see this person's mission succeed without knowing anything about her. This isn't a Jack Ryan movie. This isn't a Bourne movie, or even Safe House from earlier in this year. Movies that kind of rely on this type of bureaucratic mess where you don't know who any of these people are in relation to the structure of the government. You just see them, and that tends to be generally something that people get upset about, is, they're just throwing in all these random people that have some sort of lineage of, importance to the president, to the CIA, but yet here's this complicated mess. An interesting thing, that this isn't a criticism, more just a matter of what happened when I saw the film. I even tweeted it right away after seeing, is that there were a lot of people in my theater who were explaining the movie to their date or the person they were with as the movie went on.
That's frustrating.
I would be upset if they were making jokes or being stupid and just making, rah-rah comments. But to actually hear this person say, they're now in Pakistan, they're no longer in Afghanistan, and this scene is related to that scene, or she's looking for this Abu Ahmed because it's, if you know anything about how they eventually get to the end, he's very important. But if you go to another movie and you see that happen, it's generally, detrimental to the review or the final opinion of the movie. And here I just fully understood it. It was almost like being a Dateline story instead of a movie. It gets all the blessings of being a news story at the same time of being a film. It doesn't have to worry about those type of things because everyone wants to know the convoluted details.
I'm with you with actually empathizing with the person explaining it or needing it explained, because that first half I think is frustrating to watch. I think it's designed to be that way because there's so many characters, there's so many different locations, so many people in beards, so many different relationships. My wife, I saw it with, on the drive home, we were going scene by scene to try and figure out how that led to the scene after it, and sometimes you don't know. But I think it's almost designed to be that way, to kind of get you into how lost, and how much this was a needle in the haystack search at times. I think once the film, I don't think it's a spoiler, I think people know how this resolves itself.
The boat sinks, so to say?
Yeah, exactly. I think once they find the compound, and the build-up to that and the raid, it's very straightforward and very engaging, and that's where I really loved the film. I was respecting it and enjoying it even while I was frustrated, but that second half of the film, I think, is bravura filmmaking, and that's the part I can really laud and say that was a great movie.
Oh, I agree completely. Especially, of course, everyone's going to say the last 15 minutes. If there were parts that I felt were poorly, emphasized, it was some of the dialogue and the cursing. I mean, I'm sure people curse in these situations, and they're all very bullheaded, intelligent, think they're the smartest person in the room. But there were times where it just suddenly Jessica Chastain, someone asks who you are, and she says, "I'm the MFer who found this place." Yeah. And it was kind of disarming and almost takes you out of the film. It's like, okay, I guess she's a pretty tough chick, and she wants everyone to know that she's not just some girl in the room who is there to take notes, but she is the MFer. At the same time, it pushes you out. Did you have any of those experiences where you're watching these people and you're thinking they're just too cowboy for their own good?
But those were the scenes that I felt brought what levity there is in the film, except for like maybe Chris Pratt's character near the end cracked some jokes. But the few scenes that have levity are usually the ones where they drop the F-bomb. And it kind of struck me as odd because I'm like, this has been so serious, and then they joke around and, as you say, be cowboy. But I think the film did need a couple light moments here and there.
Let me ask you something here. If this movie was fictional and it was about the greatest manhunt ever, and they did tell it in this story structure, would you find it as intriguing or as good of a movie, do you think it would be up there for best movie of the year?
I probably would have been even more frustrated because it doesn't keep a traditional 3-act structure. It breaks it up into these sequences with titles, and at times I couldn't figure out the logic between why this sequence is broken up and this sequence isn't broken up. That's a very good question, and I'm not taking...
I just think that because of all the other CIA movies that come out, like I said earlier, that have to do with convoluted, who's this guy, suddenly there's another person who's in charge, and then, oh wait, here's the twist, here's the guy at the top of the chain who comes in and sweeps it all up. If it's okay to say that it's a better movie than fictional movies just because you want to know the truth.
And that's not what really interested me about it. I did find myself conflicted while watching this film, while watching the violence that is happening on screen and knowing that it is done in the act of revenge, more or less. I mean, it's said explicitly in the film, we are not getting this guy because we are worried about threats to the homeland. We're kind of getting this guy for future, for revenge. And so when you see children witnessing people being gunned down in front of them, it really makes you think about the cost of this one life. You can watch Dateline. I think Dateline or 2020 did do an interview with the president that outlined beat for beat what this happened. If that's what you wanted, you could watch that. I think you watch this to see it slightly dramatized and done artistically and recreated.
Yeah, well, I did enjoy it greatly, but at the same time, I went back and looked at negative comments on other movies that were, clandestine enterprises going after a man or trying to find one of their own, and wondered if they would say the same thing about this had they gone in with the same thought of this is not real, it is a movie. At the same time, I'm not trying to be bad on this movie. I think it's amazing that they pulled off a story in this way and they showed it in such a realistic manner and they rewrote it in a year.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Because they were developing this film before Osama bin Laden was killed, right?
Wasn't it completely shot?
No, it was not completely shot. They had a script written and they were producing it and then decided to obviously start from scratch. It was about a either failed or fictionalized account of trying to kill Osama bin Laden.
Maybe that's what Chris Pratt was alluding to when he said we tried this a few years ago and we lost some of our men.
Maybe.
Well, then I guess after this, the only thing left to talk about is Catherine Bigelow and the snub.
We'll get to that later. Zero Dark 30 is rated R for strong violence, including brutal, disturbing images, and for language. Stay tuned, and we will talk about Oscar nominations and eventually announce our next FWOC franchise flashback. New on DVD this week, the week of January 15th, Branded, The Possession, Taken 2, To Rome with Love. Those are both films we reviewed here on the show. And Won't Back Down. Speaking of DVD and home video, watch anything cool this week?
I rewatched the movie Rubber, which some people may know as the film about a tire that somehow comes to life and killing all these people by making their heads explode.
It has telekinetic powers.
Yes, and it's definitely about much more than that. And it's a lot about audiences and they're willing to watch violence on a disgusting scale. But that gentleman, I think his name is Quentin Dupieux, if I'm saying that right.
Yeah, he is French.
I'm hoping he's French and he didn't just change his name to be as absurd as his movies are.
That's a good theory.
But he's got another movie coming out called Wrong, which made me want to rewatch Rubber because the trailer for Wrong is maybe the most insane thing I've seen in my life. And it's all about some guy's dog who goes missing and then he just starts looking for it. And it almost looks like there's a box-sized conspiracy involved there. So if I was willing to sit through Rubber, I'm definitely willing to sit through Wrong. Besides that, I saw a short film online that I shared with my brother and a few friends. I thought I shared it with you, Jacob, but I guess not.
I may have missed it.
It's a Scottish short film called Tumult. And it's about these 3 Dark Ages warriors who are on the retreat from being in a battle. And the father's hurt, and he's about to hand over control of the tribe to his son when something insane happens. And I don't want to say anything more than that because it would ruin it. But what happens from there is hysterical. And it has the couple of the best decapitations I've ever seen in my life. So I will put that on the page and tweet it out. But if you haven't seen Tumult, that's something to see. Finally, my winner for the Golden AC, or my pick for the best movie of the summer. Best summer movie, not best movie of the summer. That's not right. Best summer style movie, Premium Rush. I showed it to Marita and she really enjoyed it. So I felt slightly vindicated.
Great. Well, one of my recommendations for this week, it's what Premium Rush reminded me of. It was a film called Cellular, which I haven't rewatched this week, but I'm recommending it because its director, David R. Ellis, passed away this week at the age of 63. He also directed Snakes on a Plane, but I think Cellular is just a cool street-level thriller. It's a total B movie. It stars Chris Evans, pre-Fantastic Four. So he's trying to help this kidnapped woman, and he can't hang up the phone, and because the woman dialed it without a rotary dial, she just like hit a bunch of random numbers. There's people chasing him. It's kind of got a Hitchcock premise to it, but it's a ridiculous B movie. But I'm a big fan of Cellular. And another film I saw this week was a film I never thought I would see, let alone watch twice within 3 days. Circumstances happened that I watched The Three Stooges twice this past week. And initially, I was against the film on the principle that they're actors redoing roles created by historic and dead comedians, much like I'm not a fan of the Pink Panther remake or Arthur, because those were characters created by a person who performed it. And I felt the same way about The Three Stooges, and I saw it. Halfway through it, it clicked to me that it is a Farrelly Brothers movie. It feels like a throwback from the 90s.
Yeah?
And that it's like if the Farrelly Brothers were to make a Dumb and Dumber sequel with an extra dumb person, a stooge, if you will, and then make it for kids. And it kind of reminded me of the movies I watched in the 90s when I was a kid, like The Addams Family or The Little Rascals or The Beverly Hillbillies. These movies with characters who weren't designed to be thrown into a feature film, but are given these weird plots and then just have the characters run through them. I don't think it's a great film. It does have way too many like Jersey Shore references.
Really?
The Kardashian joke.
Oh,
yeah,
why?
unfortunately. The Jersey Shore is a big part of the third act, actually.
Oh, that's too bad. So it's going to be completely irrelevant in 5 years.
Exactly. That's it. So it's obviously already dated, even though it feels like something a decade, or at least 15 years old. But as a Farrelly Brothers movie, like there are some funny gags in it. So I was telling someone and kind of defending it, and then I ended up having to show it to him, and then we ended up watching the whole thing. It's so kind of watchable. So it's not a recommendation, but maybe if you have kids, like if you have an 8 or 9 year old boy, show him The Three Stooges. I think he will enjoy it. Maybe a rambunctious young girl too. I don't want to be sexist. And I have one other recommendation that I'll try and get by quickly, and it ties into this week's show. It is a music video by a rock duo called Martini Ranch for a song called Reach. Have I lost you already?
Martini Ranch, is that like a new style of dressing for a salad?
Oh, no, this is a music video which I mentioned rock duo. I didn't mention one of the members was Bill Paxton.
Ah.
And that this music video was directed by James Cameron. And
Wow.
The song is really bad, and the music video is nearly 8 minutes long. But why I recommend it is that Catherine Bigelow shows up as a kind of a sexy gunslinger. And remember, she was married to James Cameron at one point.
Yes.
And it is kind of a hoot to watch if you're a James Cameron fan. And then to see Catherine Bigelow she's not objectified as some of the other women in the video, but she's a looker back in whenever this was filmed. And in order not to be sexist, after, talking about Catherine Bigelow and then mentioning that she's a good looker, I'll say that David O. Russell is a handsome man as well. So just covering my bases. He's not in the music video, but
Interesting.
yeah. Just don't want to get accused of being sexist.
I don't think anyone's going to do that, but just now I'll have to see that film or music video because it sounds insane.
It is ridiculous. I will send you the link and we'll put it on our homepage. We promised it at the beginning of the show. We can finally talk about the Academy Award nominations that happened this week. Pat, first impressions, what were the big surprises to you?
Well, this is the thing I texted you about. I could not wait until we recorded to talk about The Master. Is the subject of the religion in the movie just completely take it out of any contention for anything outside of the acting? Because it's the snub that seems to be completely lost in all the talk about Ben Affleck and Catherine Bigelow.
Yeah, when the nominations first came out for Best Picture, there were only 9 nominees, and I noticed that The Master was not on that list. And I went to Facebook and I said, this is the year I officially stopped caring about the Academy Awards because The Master gets snubbed for Best Picture. And I think it's better than all the films nominated for Best Picture for one. But and that happens all the time where there's a little sleeper film maybe that doesn't get nominated. But this was a film with a serious Oscar push to it. And can't believe anyone in the Academy didn't know that the Master existed. And then you suggested that maybe the Scientologists have more of a sway in the Academy than maybe we realized. Is that
That's
your
the only
theory?
thing that I could see possibly being conspiracy theorist about it, but I don't know how it could not receive those. Maybe it's because it's not an easy. There's nothing concrete in it about what's it about or why you're even watching it. You really have to think to find your own meaning in it. It's probably more art than any of these other movies are.
It's a divisive film, but so is Zero Dark 30, and so is Django Unchained, and even like Beast of the Southern Wild. I mean, maybe it is just too dark and too weird. Because the way the Best Picture noms are done now, you create a list and there's a complicated math algorithm done and where you rank your 10 films and how many you rank, and then they end up on this, and it can be anywhere from 5 to 10. But just the fact that that it didn't make that mysterious 10th slot kind of frustrated me a little bit, because I'm a big fan of that film.
Yeah, and then to see things like it wasn't nominated for cinematography, the thing that it might be deserving the most of. And then to see Robert Richardson for Django Unchained, and I thought that movie looked the most generic of all the Quentin Tarantino movies I've seen to date. So there's just one I'd pick and pop right there just to get it one more nomination. That's probably the most egregious of all of its misses.
I liked how Django looked. If I was to take one out of the best cinematography category and give it to the Master, and we're getting really into the obscure categories.
I know, but this is just the film that we both had issue with. So.
Exactly. I would take out Life of Pi in the best cinematography.
Yeah, it's more about the CGI and things like that.
Visual effects, and it totally deserves the visual. It probably deserves to win the visual effects Oscar. But the fact that it's there in best cinematography, I was talking to a friend about this. He told me that he saw an article with the cinematographer who said, "I didn't hardly do anything. It's all done in the computer." That's really frustrating, because The Master is such a great looking film. And
it's more than great looking. There's just things that happen with the camera that keep you engaged. And in scenes where, it's a tracking shot, but yet it's not. It's just a steady shot. So I don't know. That film got snowed.
Yeah, and in the Best Director category, obviously PTA didn't get in here, but you mentioned it earlier that Catherine Bigelow isn't nominated, and Quentin Tarantino also not nominated. Tom Hooper also not nominated, but I don't hear too many people crying about that. He was certainly, I felt, played his hand a little heavy in Les Miserables.
Well, Ben Affleck wasn't nominated, and I think many people thought that was coming for sure.
Yeah, and that is a shame, because I do think Argo is a tightly directed film, and I haven't seen Amour. Of all the nominees, Amour is my big blind spot, so I can't speak any ill will of Amour getting a nomination or Michael Haneke.
Well, if you notice, it is definitely the token foreign film that's obscure that they put in a lot of the categories. Not to say it's not good, because I haven't seen it either, but there always is that film.
The person I want to solo out in the Best Director section is Ben Zeitlin, who is a first-time director. I'm pretty happy about that. I liked Beasts of the Southern Wild, and I do think he is the main reason. There's been a lot of talk about this. Quavenzane Wallace, I can't say her name. Mm-hmm. The little girl from Beasts of the Southern Wild is nominated for Best Actress. And in my mind, I know people disagree with this, but I think a good performance from a young child, especially one, she was 5 or 6 when she filmed that?
I think she was 6.
A lot of that, she might be a prodigy, she might be the best actor of her generation, and we'll find out in years. But I think so much of a good performance from a child comes from the director. So I think he is probably more deserving of his Best Directing nomination than her Best Actress nomination. And I know a lot of people will say that's ageist or whatever, and I never have directed a child on a movie set, but I understand it's a lot about how it's directed and what kind of tricks you use. And even listening to Zeitlin talk about it, he had to use, kind of tricks to get that performance out of her.
I completely agree, mainly because dealing with children and being someone who loves to play with children and seeing the way that people who don't know how to deal with children interact with them, there is a certain level of give up that people have when they're dealing with a child. And to make somebody who Quavenzane Wallace is the youngest nominated for an Oscar ever, to be able to pull that out of her, even if she wasn't nominated, just to be lauded, is something to put him up in Best Director. So I'd say kudos to that alone. And there's a very good chance he'll lose. But I'd say it was a great masterstroke of a choice to all the people who voted for that nomination.
Going into the acting categories a little bit, the big story, I think, other than the little girl getting a nomination, as well as the of Emmanuelle Riva, the oldest person ever to get nominated for a more and Best Actress, is that Silver Linings Playbook got a nominee in every category. Pat, I know you haven't seen the movie yet. What people bank on when they get Oscar nominations, that it will make people want to see that movie. Does this kind of make you want to see Silver Linings Playbook a little bit now that it's Oscar nominated in every acting category?
No, not really. I do want to see it, just to be blunt. I generally want people who are nominated to be, and this is something I haven't seen the film, it's going to sound like I'm, judging it before, but I want them to be acting in the movie and to have to completely take over something different. And I think outside of maybe Bradley Cooper, I don't know, or maybe Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper both have issues in their characters' lives that make them have to act, I guess. But at the same time, it just doesn't seem like there's anything in it above what everybody did in, say, The Fighter, where it was only maybe one person or two people that truly had to act, and they deserve the Oscars they got. But I don't know. You've seen it. Do you think that everyone that's been nominated deserves it?
That may be a conversation we may have to save for another time. But short answer, no. Short answer, no. One thing about the acting nominations that makes me a little happy and almost lets me forget about the major Best Picture snub is that The Master did get nominated for Best Actor and Best Supporting Actor for Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour Hoffman. I really hope Joaquin wins it for Best Actor. But
don't forget Amy Adams for Best Supporting Actress.
Oh, and Amy Adams as well, though I may be over Amy Adams in that role, actually. But
just that she was nominated. All those three main tentpole characters in the film were nominated makes me believe even more that all the other snubs are completely political based.
Yeah, I don't know. That does add some fuel to the fire. Joaquin Phoenix has a pretty... I wouldn't say he's definitely not the favorite to win Best Actor. That would be Daniel Day-Lewis and Lincoln. Lincoln having the most nominations of any film. And do you think Lincoln is the favorite to win, be the big winner on Oscar night?
Maybe it's just the fact I like to root for underdogs and I'm a Cubs fan, but yes, I do, and I don't like it.
I thought Lincoln was a good movie, but I think I would put money down now that it's going to win, but I don't know. Maybe my story will change.
Maybe it's personal choice as well, because looking back at the last two winners, The Artist and The King's Speech, to me, I don't hold either of those in very high regard, and maybe 20 years from now, I won't care as much. But there's always, seems like every few years, there's just picks that boggle the mind for me personally, like Crash or Chicago, and just looking back, or of course Titanic.
I mentioned earlier how there are so many divisive films up for Best Picture. I think Lincoln is the least divisive, other than maybe Argo, and that one didn't get a Best Director nomination. So, what
about outside of the acting and directing, the screenplays, the original or the adapted? We talked about this a little bit with last week the WGA and what are locks, and I said some people on CNN, I read that Zero Dark 30 is a lock for Best Original. There's an interesting choice in here for Moonrise Kingdom for original. I know you're a big Wes Anderson fan, and I've seen the film, and I'm more of a fan than not, but do you think that movie has a chance
of winning? Probably not. I don't know if Wes Anderson, he's had better films in this category that haven't won.
I'm glad you say that.
Yeah, and I don't think Tarantino will win either. I think you were right in saying Mark Bowl and Zero Dark 30. And I should mention at this point, in case our listeners haven't figured out, we're not listing off all the nominations. Those are easy enough to find online. The adapted screenplay, I think, is much more of a crapshoot. I have no idea who would win that. Maybe this is the one category Argo wins.
That would be sad if that were the truth, but without seeing Silver Linings Playbook, I feel like any of those movies could take it.
Life of Pi was considered for the longest time unadaptable.
True.
If it's Lincoln's night, Tony Kushner will probably win, and if that's an award given out early, you could probably tell the momentum of the night and how it's going to go.
Yeah, and if it is 2004 all over again, when Lord of the Rings took every single award in the show, it'll be a long and hard night for me to watch.
Let's hit a couple more categories before we leave the Oscar talk on the table for a while. I just want to say I'm happy that Best Original Song is back to 5 nominees after last year's only had 2, the Rio and the Muppets one, and hopefully they'll have some performances at the show. Are any of those a favorite of yours? Do you think it's Adele's to lose?
Probably. That's definitely the thing that I think people will go back to over and over again is that song. Because people to love that movie, but I keep hearing about that stinking song. And for as much as the music in Les Mis is exceptional, I think Suddenly might have been the least exceptional of all the songs.
For sure. One category that I usually do not care about, or even a subsection of categories, are the costume design and production design. I think this year there were so many interesting costume dramas from Anna Karenina and Les Mis and Lincoln. And even the fantasy movies. I remember the one good thing I really liked about Snow White and the Huntsman were the costumes. So I'm actually interested in those categories, which I normally don't care about. And we would be remiss if we didn't talk, because we talked about it earlier on the show, the documentary feature.
Is this the hardest year for picks for documentary? Because I feel like looking at all the things that were on the short list and the list preceding that, there were some serious films left out. Maybe most of all were Bully or The Queen of Versailles.
I think Queen of Versailles is just a victim of being too, I don't know if I should use trivial as a word, but from looking at the subject matter of the nominees, it's a heavy year for documentary feature.
True. But it's the one that seems to be talked about. And some people call it, people that I care about have called it maybe the best film of the year because of just... maybe that's sharks enjoying blood in the water, so to speak.
Too many people enjoying this family get their comeuppance. I still haven't seen any of the nominated documentary features. 2 of them, at least, are available on Netflix Instant: How to Survive a Plague and The Invisible War. Gatekeepers is coming to theaters in the next couple weeks, and Searching for Sugar Man should have a DVD release coming soon. I'm sure as it comes closer to Oscars, we'll probably be talking about it a little bit. Maybe we'll do Walk Oscar Pool. I don't know yet. You, the listeners, will have to tell us what you want from us. Tell us what you want. Do you want more Oscar talk? Do you just want us to become an Oscar cast?
So Jacob's saying if you want to be involved in this conversation, there's Twitter, Filmcast WOAC. There's email, filmcastwac@gmail.com, and our website, Filmcast Without a Cause. Let us know what you think of the Oscars. And if you're as upset about The Master being completely left out of all the serious categories for filmmaking as we are.
Maybe people thought Skyfall should have been nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah, I'm interested in that as well.
Jonathan Gregg posted on my Facebook page that he wanted Step Up Revolution to get nominated. But when we come back, speaking of Jonathan Gregg, we're going to maybe make an announcement that'll make him very happy when we announce our FWOC franchise flashback starting next week. Keep listening. So what's coming up in theaters this week? January 18th. A couple big releases of January films. Broken City with Russell Crowe and Mark Wahlberg doing his typical January job of opening a movie. The Last Stand, the return of Arnold Schwarzenegger in a leading man role. And Mama, a horror film produced by Guillermo del Toro. Pat, I would be willing to review any of those movies. January doesn't seem that bad right now.
Yeah, I don't know about Broken City. Some things I see with Mark Wahlberg in, I'm like, this just seems like DVD fodder.
Broken City is, of those 3, the one I'm least interested in. But we're not going to review any of them. Maybe Last Stand will get pushed back a week. I don't know. I'll keep working on Pat about that. But instead, what are we going to review, Pat?
We are going to see, after it's been out for a couple months, Silver Linings Playbook. We have not got a chance to see it, so we're going to see it and tell you our thoughts.
Well, since it's nominated for so many Academy Awards, I figured, Pat, you should see it, and then we can talk about it. And we'll try not to let the...
You can write your love letter for Robert De Niro. That's the whole reason of reviewing this film?
We'll try not to let the praise that the Academy has heaped upon it in the form of nominations color it too much. It'll be interesting because I saw it before the nominations came out and had a certain opinion, and Pat, you're going to be seeing it afterwards, so we'll talk about that a little bit. As well as starting our next FWOC franchise flashback. For new listeners, if you don't know what the FWOC franchise flashback is, basically we watch a film or a series of films, film by film, week by week, talk about how it fits into the series, what sequels added to a franchise or detracted from a franchise.
And ideally, we watch these films up until the release of its next movie.
Yes, and that's exactly what we're doing with the next FWOC franchise flashback when we start with Die Hard next week. John McTiernan, Bruce Willis, Alan Rickman, Reginald Vell Johnson. I'm out of people whose names I know in that movie.
Well, this might be the best 5 weeks of my life, or anybody's life for that matter. And if it works out well enough, you mentioned Jonathan Gregg, our good friend. Hopefully he'll take my advice and put on the one-man show of John McClane's life.
And we may have a special guest at some point during all this Die Hard talk. I don't want to say too much in case it falls through. It may be Bruce Willis. But before we go, Pat, remind people again how they can let us know what's going on in FWOCland or their movie going live.
If you want to let the internet know that Bruce Willis needs to be part of our FWOC franchise flashback and move in with me for the next 5 weeks, you can hit us up on Twitter at FilmcastWOAC or email filmcastwoac@gmail.com. You can leave us a message on our website. That's filmcastwithoutacause.com. Anything you post there will make it in the show. And if you leave us a voicemail, Yes, you can do that. Call us at 515-412-0737. As soon as you walk out of a movie, or maybe while you're watching Die Hard, you want to share your favorite quote, just put your phone up to the screen, dial 515-412-0737, leave us a message, and if it's PG rated, it'll make it on the show.
Especially if you know Reginald Vell Johnson. I would really like to hear him talk about how he didn't end up in the last couple Die Hard sequels. I haven't seen the next one yet, so hopefully he makes a cameo appearance. But until then, I'm Jacob Rosdale.
And I'm Patrick Boberg.
Thanks for listening.
And that's a wrap.
I'm finished.